So let's talk about first, in brief, I know neither
Sure.
one of us are lawyers, but the top four is the will. You want to have a will in place. You're working now, you're making a salary, you have assets. And the will is, to me, primarily just to protect your assets and to pass them on to the people that you care about. It's only a set of instructions, correct?
You're absolutely right about that. And one of the things that I do when I'm talking with people and helping families make these decisions, in addition to those four that I'd like to talk about a little later, before you even start any of that, you've got to think about yourself. You're going to have this conversation with mom or auntie or grandma, and you're in the age group of 45 to 65 maybe, so that puts them another generation or two ahead of you. You've got to think about, how do you feel about this yourself? You have to be confident. You have to plan for it. You have to think about it as a project, like at work, setting up what your goals are. But even before that, are you comfortable? What is the relationship with these people? Are the person you want to have this courageous conversation with, are they ready for the conversation? Do they trust you? Have they always treated you as the young child and not really giving you the respect that you need as an adult? You have to have some real conversations with yourself to know, what are you getting out of this and what are they going to get out of this? When you're making this conversation, you have to always put it in what your loved one is going to get out of this.
The context and what they would be comfortable with. But I think you really need to be comfortable with it yourself at first.
Absolutely.
And when I actually sat down to think about these essential four, which there's so many other things, but we're just going to focus on these four, I was a little freaked as well. When you're reading your last will and testament, you're laying out your instructions, when you're talking about your living will, which are for end-of-life decisions, when you're talking about your health care proxy, who do you want, to act on your behalf, and what do you want them to know? You start thinking, your confidence gets a little shaken because you're talking about things that are going to go into play when you're not in control. But this is the time, when you're healthy, is when you need to take control. Don't you think?
You're absolutely right. When you're healthy, you think this is never going to happen, so it's much easier to do it now when it seems very far away and remote.
Exactly.
When you're doing it for yourself. And anyone who is planning for their parent should also be thinking about planning right now for themselves. It's a lot easier. Parents or older people, older relatives don't really want to do that usually. Not always. Some people, we have so much more education and we live so much longer, and people have had other experiences that they can see some negative outcomes for those who have not made any plans at all.
Oh, and we're going to talk about that too, what happens when these conversations don't happen. I was very lucky because my mother wanted to have these conversations, and thank you,
are
Mom.
lucky. You are lucky.
Well,
yes.
my mother was very wrapped around the family and making sure that things are in place, that we're comfortable.